good tip for digital breakouts is click on everything. It's a little better on the top one. About official start time, and then give you more time. Apologies to people who are streaming. I'm not going to talk much for the next 5 minutes or so. Play along from home. So you're seeing the general concept behind the breakout is that there's usually an overarching site and things to explore, and then you get clues to enter in the Google form. In a physical breakout, that would be your action blocks. You need to find out the color combination or the regular combination block. Anybody got a lock yet? Yeah, see some yeses. All right. All right. Which one? The first one. If you need a hint, type a wrong answer in. Just type a string of gibberish into the clue. You'll go, nope, that's wrong. But it will also give you a hint to the right answer. Another tip is don't be linear. If you're stuck on the first one, try a different one. It eliminates some of the pictures or some of the talking, still working. Good sign. But in the wrong answer, you get a clip.
got the last one.
You got the last one? Is that the color code? Color code? The 7-letter left. Yes.
How do you really do what you've done almost and then pop up or like?
It'll accept it. If you have it wrong, it'll turn red and say, and give you a clue that it's wrong. Good question. I was looking at a theater construction build day for sets, and we found it out 2 hours ago. Are you a theater? I said, yeah, but you have to keep a good question every time I ask you a question. Letter one have been solved so far. Anybody want a hint? Or a tip? Nobody's throwing technology in frustration. Always a good sign.
I want a tip. I feel like I
You want a tip, okay.
don't know what I'm, like I don't know that I even know what I'm doing. I mean, I know my goal is to figure out the clues, but I, so.
That's Jackson's picture.
Okay. Yeah. So, like, I could be gathered from this text or from or any of those two. Okay. But it's not, there's not a specific order.
Correct. Not this one. That was a good question about,
How many directions do we have?
you need 4 directions.
Yeah. We only have 4 places.
4 directions.
We only have 4 places.
It takes 2 directions to go from the 3rd place to the 4th place.
Okay.
Tip for you. It takes 2 directions to go from the 3rd place to the 4th place. So you need 4 directions.
Anybody got the 5 digit code?
You get a puzzle? You get a puzzle ring?
Good, yeah. It's the only one I got now. Oh, crazy.
Are you
Maybe
finished?
change it. I love your thinking things.
I just got the site to open, so I'm starting.
Should I give you uninterrupted time to continue, or should I talk and you'll kind of listen while you keep going, or do you want to know the answers? Do you want me to let you do it later? What do you think? You want the answers? Okay. So the first one is, the answer is John Jay. If you clicked on the picture of the handsome man in orange and black, it takes you to a link of Founding Fathers' other jobs, and he was the founding father and the father of American counterintelligence.
Did it be one word or something?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's one word on campus. The Culper code, so you had to read the directions about hidden ink, and then you highlighted it. There was white on white text that showed up, and the words were "be vigilant." And then when you opened the Culper code, you had to type in 58667. I forget what the answer is. You had to type in the 5 digits for the 2 words "be vigilant" in the Culper code. So that's a two-step clue there. What else? The colors were just the 4 stops that you made, those 4 colors in order. And then traveling through the city, you went east to the tavern, north to the church, and then following the road, you had to go north and then east to get to Race Street Pier. I think that's all of them. Is that everything? The color, it's the colors of the 4 places in your mission. So it's just those 4 colors in order.
Will somebody say that with this number?
40, what is it? 48, 660. Thank you. I don't remember. I don't have the Culper code memorized, surprisingly. So for being good sports and playing along, everybody can have an escape sticker. For those of you that were here earlier, I'm a total sticker hoarder. I will do things for stickers, and so if you would like to show off
How'd you
your
find the digit?
sticker prowess. I'm sorry?
Oh, yeah, it's the alphabet order is terrible. It's like all the very
There
top
it is.
on
Yeah, actually, vigilant is like up at the top on the right. Yeah, if you scroll down, you don't find it.
What happened to the letters? The letters stopped going in alphabetical order.
Yeah, you get to U and then you're stuck. Wait, turn it off again? I do. Technology. Okay, so hi, I'm Beth Cohen. I'm a high school librarian. Any other librarians out there? Yes! Represent. So you'll actually understand when I say Dewey Decimal System. This is my 5th year in the district. I spent 15 years before that, or at the high school, 15 years before that at the elementary school. So this is Pete C_Cohen is this slideshow, and there's also a link to lots of resources at the end. Feel free to email me. I apologize if you start to follow me on Twitter, because right now it's all the goose chase things. Anybody else doing the goose chase? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, do the goose chase, it's fun. But so those would be your gaming brains, people who want to go do that. For those of you who don't know, goose chase is like a digital scavenger hunt. You go around and it tells you to take pictures or videos of things, or post a link to tweets. I am one-to-one Chromebooks in my building, but we have the cameras turned off, so my students can't do goose chases because they don't have access to cameras. For those of you who are wondering, that's a little girl. She is a 6-pound, 3-legged, cranky old lady, and we're still negotiating lap cat space management. So when they said they needed a photo, there she was. As I said, we went one-to-one with Chromebooks for all of our students this year. Last year we piloted with just freshmen. We've been a Google district for 3 years now. Before that we were Moodlers. There's one thing I like about Moodle that hasn't transferred to Google yet, and that is integrated badging. I loved being able to do integrated badging in Moodle. But I was the Moodle person for the district. I got paid, nothing-ish to be the Moodle person. And then when we switched to Google, everybody seemed to think that I was now the Google person for the district, and I now officially get paid nothing, not nothing-ish, nothing to be the Google person. So I just play around, and as you can see, I just spend a lot of time learning how to use different apps and then trying to make my teachers interested in using them as well. So mostly it's just me playing around and then going, hey, I found something cool that I think you should do with your students. So our goals for today: why do you want to do breakouts? The process that I went through for creating the one that I use for library orientation for my 9th graders coming into the building for the first time. And then the how-tos of all the different tools that I use. So I'm going to kind of skip over the whole create part in the middle so that we can go live if we need to at the end with all of the tools. So why do breakouts? So if you need the official answer for your district of why your kid's running around taking pictures of things or playing fun, doing fun things, it hits most of the SEL skills and the 4 C's of communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. I was reading a book about gamification in the classroom on the train on the way here, and he also mentioned curiosity. Kids are now exploring and learning and even maybe branching out. You know, did you know George Washington was a hemp farmer? You're welcome, now you know, because you had to read through it to get to John Jay. So it may be encouraging them to try something else. And if you set up your digital breakout so they're working in teams, then they have to work on that team management cooperation, which can also be one of the pitfalls that I will get to later. It also hits 3, in my opinion, of the ISTE standards: empowered learner, computational thinker, and global collaborator. They do have to problem solve, they have to use technology, and they have to communicate and work well with others. So, the nifty thing about digital breakouts is that you can use them almost any time. You can use them. One of my history teachers is looking to use it as an introductory activity. He wants to make sure all of his students have the same background knowledge coming into a unit. So we may sit down and plan a digital breakout for them so that they're at least reading the same articles or watching the same videos, doing the same, exploring the same content before they start diving in. So it's one way that you can introduce a topic. The way that I use it is a combination of new information and hitting things they should have learned before. We use the same library circulation system and library catalog that they use in elementary school and the middle school. So they should know how to find books in the catalog, but they don't know where those books are physically located in my space. So kind of a refresher of using the circulation system, but then also exploring the physical space. So formative assessment, do it halfway through. What are they getting? What are they not getting? You can do it just for fun. If you go on breakout.edu or you Google digital breakouts, people just create them. So there's like the Thanksgiving fun or the Save the Melty Snowman. Just fun ones. You got half a day, you got half a class. See if you can find one online or create your own. So, history. Anybody know Pajama Sam and Freddy Fish? No? Hey! There you go. So, my son's 25. So these were early video games. Similar idea. Freddy would swim around and she would go and help Mr. Smith do something, and he would give her an apple and she would kind of put it in her backpack and she would swim around, and then she could later, if she gave the apple to the horse would take her here, and when she got there was another puzzle to solve. And then Pajama Sam was similar. So my son and I did a lot of Freddy Fish and Pajama Sam. If you get older, there's Nancy Drew. You can also get the Nancy Drew mystery solving games. The same idea where you get a piece of information or an object from one place and apply it in another. This is a physical, an escape room that I did with a group of friends. And then does anybody do Michael Matero's Hive Summit? Does anybody know that? So this is, he does it in the summer, the Hive Summit, and it's a series of webinars. It runs for 8 to 10 days, I think, now. All kinds of different ed tech tools. Matt Miller, I think, has been involved in it. But he also does a digital breakout as part of that, and each presenter has an activity or a clue that at the end you can put all of the clues together, and it usually has something to do with what their focus is. So just a couple of things that all build together to lead us to digital breakouts. So this is my honors 9th grade library orientation breakout. It's a Google site. And so each of these objects that they click on, the idea is that they've been locked in the library and they're exploring the librarian's desk to try to get out. So each of the things that they click on there, like your pictures and your map, give them something to do or an activity. So working through the steps. So I intentionally put it as interlocking puzzle pieces because it's not necessarily a linear process. You're going to keep cycling back. And so I'm expecting somebody's going to ask me how long it takes, and I have no idea. The one I did for you, probably about 2 hours, and most of that is just finding the information and deciding what the clues are going to be. For me now, the game building itself, putting together the pieces, isn't that complicated. It's more the background, the building, the story, deciding what the locks are. So goals planning, creating, setting the scene, testing, differentiation, rewards, and feedback. So setting the goal, what do you want students to learn or demonstrate? So for me, for 9th grade library orientation, students will demonstrate understanding of how to use the OPAC, that's the online patron access catalog, how to access Destiny collections, which is a way to group library. So I can create a list of all of the horror books, or I can create a list of all of the summer reading books, for example. How to find materials in the library and library rules and procedures. So then you decide which locks will address which piece of information or which skill. So on the left is my chart, and then after I did it, I realized that Breakout EDU has a chart that you can just go and download. You have links to all of these, by the way, at the end of the presentation. So you can see this is the concept, this is what they're actually going to do, and then this is the picture on that desktop that I showed you. This is what they're going to click on. And then the actual clue and the answer. So you definitely want to lay this out before you try to do anything else to make sure that you have the best plan for linking the two things. So some things you want to think about: how complicated are the puzzles? So something like putting the 4 colors in order is less complicated than having to find the hidden message in the one piece of paper and translating it into the number code from the other piece of paper. So I like to do a mix, kind of throw in one sort of easier one to balance off the more complicated ones. I also try to change them around because you have different kinds of thinkers. My husband is a numbers guy, I'm a spatial relations guy, so I'm really good at packing and horrible at budgeting, and he can tell me that I paid too much for bananas, but he can't get them the groceries in the trunk. So, is the answer clearly stated or inferred? Some of the puzzles that I'm going to show you give you the opportunity to say, good job, your clue word is, and some of them you have to infer and type it in, kind of guessing what the answer is or making a logical assumption. Is it online only or some physical activity? Yours was completely online because I had no idea what was in the space. For my students, they actually get up and move around the library because they have to go find physical objects within the library. So depending on your space, you can decide what you want to do. And are they all content related? If you want to throw in a fun one or you want to throw in a freebie question, what's Mrs. Cohen's cat's name? They have to, if you want them to engage with other adults in the building. Or I have an assistant. Do I want them to go introduce themselves to my assistant so that they know her name? Introduce yourself to Mrs. Baruti. What's your clue word? So then you're going to set up your locks and your lockbox. So as I said, I created, this is a Google Drawing desktop. I just imported images and then linked them all to the clues or the activities. And this is where I said I was going to jump ahead, and we weren't going to get into the nitty gritty of what that looks like, because this way I can go live at the end. So then you're going to set the scene. What's your theme? So for the one I did for you, it was about colonial Philadelphia and spies. What do you want it to look like? So then a Google site, a little bit of a story here, and that embedded desktop. Kind of like the one I did for you, a little better now. All right, test and revise. This is a big step. This is the one that's going to screw you up. This is the one when I say I don't know how long it took. This is why, because I would tweak it and I would go back in and I would have to do it. So use a willing guinea pig. Shout out to my son. I go, Mo, I need you to go back in and test my breakout. You'll spend so much time with it that the answers become obvious to you. And you need somebody else to look at it with fresh eyes. The other thing is, in my district at least, I need to use a student account, because they may be blocked for an activity or an app or a site and I don't know it. So I actually eventually made my district give me a student account so that I could test things. I claimed that it was so I could present the student view of things when I do PD, but it was also helpful for this. So a couple things when you're testing to look out for. Do all of the links work, and do all of the links work for everybody who's going to be using it? And do the puzzles make sense to somebody who's not as invested in the project, somebody who hasn't been spending as much time living with it as you have? So, differentiation. We currently have 2 levels of high school English, 9th grade English. In my high school, we have honors and college prep. When I started, we had 3 levels. We had one lower version. So I actually have 2 different variations of this entire digital breakout, one for honors classes, which is the one that you've seen, and then one for the college prep classes. So some ways that you can differentiate. So a different interface, connecting the clue to the lock. That came up earlier. She's asking, does it go in order? And for yours, no. The pictures didn't necessarily, the first picture wasn't the first clue, the second picture wasn't the second clue. Links to help sources, and then paper charts or digital paper charts can be helpful for some students. So this is the college prep, the lower version that I do. They don't have the desktop. They have this letter. So they still have the color coding, but they also have links that are sort of more specific about where I want them to go, and I think the directions are a little clearer. So they're still doing very similar problems, but it's a little more streamlined and a little more directed on where they're going to go to find the answers. So connecting the clue to the lock, create a form with a link to the clue in the question. So here you're saying, 4-letter lock, when you're exploring the library, make sure to visit 338.2. That's a Dewey Decimal number. When you go to that location in the nonfiction shelves of my library, it's a book called Salt. So the answer then is salt. If you remember back in the honors one, there's just a post-it note that says, check 338.2. So they have to realize that that's a Dewey Decimal number and that they have to go find that location in the library to see what's there. 7-letter lock, I don't know. Number lock, use the Destiny collections to find out how many new books were added to the library over the summer. So again, very specific directions on where to go to find the answer. Help links, if you clicked on the phone in the original Escape desktop, it took you to this page. So those are slideshows, just reminders of how to use the library catalog and reminders of how my library is laid out. And then that's my library website that also has all of those links. But they were also working in groups, so I don't give them a lot of help. I go, have you clicked on this object? Have you looked around the space for X, Y, and Z. But I can pretty much let them go. And they'll just run off on their own. And they're arguing and they're running, but they figure it out. Another thing that I found was helpful for some of my very linear thinking students was this chart, so that they could cross off the clue that they had used or the activity that they had used to find the clue. It also kind of got them thinking out of that, I have to do the first one first and the second one second. Do the easy ones first, which eliminates, I've clicked on the letter, I know that answer, I don't have to keep going back to the letter. It's also a useful skill, librarian, coming out for researching. I will have students who are looking for information on colonial Philadelphia, and they'll go to the first source and they'll look for information on subtopic 1. And then they'll go to source 2 and look for information on subtopic 1. And then they'll go to source 3 and look for information on subtopic 1. And then they'll repeat the whole process for subtopic 2. Instead of reading the source and figuring out what's the useful information. So that ends up being just sort of a really secret, subtle way for me to get them into that thought process of, you don't know what you're reading for, so you have to read it carefully and think about what might be important. Ninja librarian. So feedback. What did students think of the game? I'm in high school, so I know what they think of the game because they're going to tell me while they're doing it. I have no issues with what they're doing. So observation. So you all seemed pretty engaged. You were happy. You were working on it. You were starting to work with each other, which is fine, but you seem to enjoy it. Exit tickets. As I said, I'm a Google school, so I hand the activity out through Google Classroom, and then I give them the opportunity to do an exit ticket on the way out. You could also do a paper survey. You could do a Pear Deck or Nearpod poll if you wanted, whatever works for you. And I use a combination of Likert scales. How much did you like this activity? 1, I hated it. 5, I loved it. How hard were the clues? 1, super easy. 5, way too hard. What did you learn today? What was one thing you learned? I think I asked them what they liked about it, and I always give them a what would make it better option. And it's always interesting because the what I loved about it and what would make it better are frequently at cross purposes, or they're the same thing depending on who's answering the question. So then, do you reward students who escape, and if so, how? So photo props. Let them take goofy photos with, if you remember back my escape room, we had a sign that said, we escaped, we escaped. Make them some silly props. Again, I'm a high school student, they'll take selfies of anything. So give them the chance to do bragging rights. Tell them you'll put it on the school website or your classroom website, or you'll hang a poster. They'll be all over this. Stickers. I can't do stickers for everybody. I have 300 freshmen, that's a lot of stickers, but if you have a class of 30, it's a little more reasonable. These were from Sticker Mule, not that I'm advertising for them, but they run specials. Digital badges and certificates. There are add-ons. Certify-em is one for certificates that allow you to automatically generate certificates or digital badges based on Google Forms. My district has them blocked, so unfortunately I can't show you what it looks like. But what it does is it takes the names in a spreadsheet and it basically says, if your name shows up in this column, then I'm going to generate a certificate for you. I could do that on my own. So I could do a merge and take the names, but Certify-em is a nice add-on that does it automatically for you. You create the certificate, the kid submits the correct completed form, and they automatically get emailed a certificate that says, congratulations, you escaped, or whatever you want it to say. So, cautions, things I've learned from the trenches. So I should say this is the second year I've done it. Last year I did a much more basic, very similar sort of to the lowest Google form where the activity was linked to the lock. Before that I inherited paper worksheets that said, what time is the library open? Circle, 7 a.m., 7:30, 7:15, and then there was a mail merge where they all looked up 3 different books in the library. You know, what's the call number for this book? Walk to this number. So this still gets them up and moving around and exploring, but it isn't one more piece of paper that they have to fill out with their pencils, and it keeps their Chromebooks from being expensive paperweights. So, lateral and linear thinkers. So one of the issues that some of my students and some of my groups have is they do question 1, and they're going to stay on question 1 until they figure it out. And if that's just not the right kind of question for them, that's not the way their brain works, they're going to get frustrated and they're going to stay on question 1. The biggest eye-opener for me is I had a student who, he's a genius, but on the spectrum, and so literal. First of all, the idea of, I'm going to solve a puzzle and I'm going to get an answer, but it's not the answer to the question that the puzzle asked, completely threw him for a loop. And then there's an activity where there's a map of the library and it says, go find X, Y, and Z. And it labeled something as the desktop computers for printing. Because with our Chromebooks, we do have what's known as follow me printing. Anybody? We have follow me printing, but at the beginning of the year, when we went 1-to-1 with the 800 students who hadn't had them from the year before, follow me printing wasn't really working well, and so we said, it's easier if you come in and log into the desktop, because it's all Google and it's saved everywhere, so just log into the desktop. So the idea was for the students to realize that the desktops were there for them to come in and print from. This student refused to believe me that that was the answer to the question because those computers did more than just print. So they couldn't be the desktop printers, the desktop computers for printing that the puzzle was referring to. So if you have super, super literal thinkers, they're not going to do well with this puzzle. Or if you have linear thinkers where question A has answer X, they're going to struggle with this activity. And that's why I said the clue list of this is the clue, this is where you got to the clue, what's the answer, can be helpful because it's more of a linear chart that makes a little bit more sense to them. It's rigid, it's a straight format. Confusing clues. My puzzle that I did for my students also had a color code in it. It's the letter on the desk, has words just like yours had words on it. But there was also a to-do list that also came in colors only because I thought it was prettier, but that confused them because there were 2 things that had multiple colors, and it didn't even occur to me when I was setting it up that I had 2 things that were in colors. And then technical issues. If the internet's down, it doesn't work that well. It's really not gonna work if you don't have the internet. We're all good at thinking on our feet. In that case, I have no idea what I would have done. I guess I could have made paper copies of the clues and had them do at least some of the physical objects, but there's no way they would have been able to complete the whole thing with the digital links. The other one is I have T-Mobile, which apparently is the only phone service that actually works in my building. We're a 1950s cinder block school. So I had my students taking selfies of themselves with books. Nobody else could upload it to the form. So while they loved the selfie activity, running around taking pictures of themselves with various library books and games and puzzles and things, they couldn't upload it into the Google form. So the first time it happened, I had to go in and make that question not required, and I said, just show me your phone. So they would all run around, take the picture, and then they would just go, Mrs. Cohen, we got it, we got it. And great, keep moving, move on. So things that pop up, and you just kind of have to roll with them. So resources. So if you go to the My Resources link, it's a Google Drive folder where you can make copies of many of, from my breakout, not the one that you did, but my library breakout. And then just some resources, some game building resources, digital breakouts, and some general gamification resources. So this is where we go back into the create section. I'm gonna do the not super googly ones first. So this was, the first one was the shelfie. For those of you who don't know, in a Google form, you can import an image. I don't know if you know that. You can import an image into a Google form. So it ideally should have worked beautifully. And then I would have had all these great pictures of kids with books that I could have put out on social media or hung around the library, but no. So just reinforcing the skill of being able to find things in my library. And as I said, they loved this activity. They ran around the room and they're like, Steve, did you get the poetry? And they would like pose with their pictures, and I got like the Kilroy one where nobody's face was showing, and then I got the Thug ones. So it was a lot of fun to see this, and then they loved this one, and it ended up being, in terms of the game, the least successful lock because it didn't actually work as a lock. So this is an online game, Match the Memory. So it allows you to set up a matching game. And you can either do where the two cards match, like they have the same word on it, or you could do, if you want to do math, you could do math problems. You could put the problem on one question and the answer on another. In my case, it was questions like non-fiction books are books of information arranged by the Dewey Decimal Number. So I kind of snuck in fiction, non-fiction. I snuck in what time the library's open. I snuck in some rules about the library. They probably weren't paying attention. They were just clicking until they got all of the matches. But it was out there, and maybe they read something, and maybe they absorbed it. And this is another one where you just give them, it allows you to personalize the message, and you just give them the answer at the end. Congratulations, the code word is genre. So this is Jigsaw Planet, which allows you to upload any kind of image of your own. I see some nods, people know Jigsaw Planet. So again, you can do a picture of anything. You could do a picture and then say, embed the text. The code word is, I've seen people highlight parts of a website that they want people to focus on. Or you can just put in random text. In my case, it's bananagrams with the names of all of the games that I have in the library. And they were supposed to go look at the games section and discover that that was the relaxation station. And actually the word relaxation is in the puzzle. So if they tried to do this first before they explored the library, they're like, we got a bunch of words, we don't know what to do with this. So this was one that didn't maybe work as well as I would have liked it to. I think this one needed to be maybe a more specific clue. So this is one that they do online. You just give them the link to your puzzle. So you have to log in. You do have to get an account for this one so that they direct them to your puzzle. So you can see SHHS Library. That's me as an account. But you can also go to, I'm going to have to look up the URL. There is an online puzzle making site where you can copy and paste the individual pieces. Jigsaw Planet does not allow you to do that. I'll have to go check the link for you. It's in your resources, I promise. Where you can do the puzzle and then download each individual piece, and you put them into a Google drawing. And if you know Google Drawings, you can smoosh everything to the sides and scramble them up. And then the students can build the pieces and put them back together. So that's contained. You don't need internet access, or you don't need to go out of your realm, out of your domain to get to it. The one thing is that the pieces won't snap together. Yeah. So you get close, but they're not going to snap and align into place like students might be expecting. But big enough pieces, it really doesn't matter. And this, I did it that way to make sure I had all of the pieces. That's the one thing, is that you have to make sure that you have all of the pieces to the puzzle when you download it. And then you just force a copy when you hand it out to students. Everybody know how to force a copy? Changing the end of the URL. All right. So here's the one that my very literal thinker had issues with. So this is, again, a Google Drawings map. I just made a bunch of rectangles in the shape of my library, threw in a Bitmoji, and then the letters So can anybody figure out how you work this puzzle? How you find the clue from this puzzle? It helps if you know where things are in my library, but does anybody figure out the basic idea behind this? If you find the objects in order, the letters spell a word. Yep. So the printer is L, graphic novels are O, the desktops for printing and other things are C, and it eventually spells the word locate. So again, it's another one that gets them up and moving around the room and exploring. If you listen, I went to a session this morning about every 10 to 15 minutes, your brain needs oxygen and you need a break and you need to move around. So this is sort of built-in stations. There's no way that they can sit still and do these activities. So you have to be prepared for a little bit of chaos. You have to be willing to have some chaos in your room. So then this is one that I freely admit I completely stole and back engineered from the Hive Summit. So if you ask me how to code this, I'm going to tell you I don't really know. I just know how to tweak somebody else's. So I've given you mine. Feel free to steal. So the way that a Google Sheets with an if-then works, and this is the end result, but the start is they only see this question. And then when they type this answer in, the correct answer, the next question comes up. And the secret is sheet 2, which has if-then coding. And at the end of this, I will go in and show you how that works. So if-then coding, and you can put whatever questions you want in there depending on what you want them to look like. And it doesn't have to be a number. It's really actually a text string, not a numerical answer. So you basically say, it says, if square 3C has, in quotation marks, whatever you want, then 4B4 says, in quotation marks, whatever you want. So if-then coding, if they have the the first answer correct, they get the second question. And again, this is one where you give them a specific, precise answer at the end. Unlike the map, where if they went out of order, they got the word bakub, or whatever it was. I'm like, that doesn't sound like a word. Maybe you should go back and try it again. Also, does anybody else have students who don't know the difference between a printer and a copier? And then they have absolutely no idea what to do with a copier. They'll like stand there. Mr. Brown sent me the copy. I'm like, okay, go ahead, it's over there. And they're like, let me help you with that. They also don't know how to dial their parents on a regular phone because it's just in their cell phone, and they go call mom. I proctor a lot of AP exams, and when they run long, they're like, can I call my mom? I'm like, sure, my phone's over there. Like, no, I'm like, you can't go in your bag. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, detour. So this is the actual lockbox. So it's Google Forms with response validation and hints. So response validation is you make it a required question, and then you click on your 3 dots and you choose response validation. And it says text contains, so actually Enneagram would have worked. It would have accepted Enneagram as the answer because it contains the letters N-E-E-A. So you also have to specify all caps or all caps no spaces because it's computer text. It only looks at exactly what you put in. So it doesn't accept spelling errors. It doesn't accept capitals that don't match what you want to do. So you have to be really specific with your students for that. And then this is what do you want to tell students who get it wrong? The default is something like, sorry, that's an incorrect answer. But you can put it in, these guys are, you can put it in as a hint. It's not cheating. So in this case, this is, again, the honors one where it just had the post-it note that said check 338.2. It's giving them the hint, the direction that that's a Dewey Decimal number. And so maybe they should start thinking about it in that way. So response validation and hints. All right. So future-ready librarians, brave before perfect. Go ahead and try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And we ask our students to take chances all the time. Tell them, I'm trying something new today. I hope it works. I hope you like it. If it doesn't, tell me you didn't like it. We don't have to do it again. Or tell me what you liked about it. Tell me what you didn't like about it, and maybe we'll try it again later. I do that all the time with my students, my poor 9th graders. They're my guinea pigs. I said, hey, we're using Nearpod this time. When you come back with your health class, we're going to use Pear Deck. If you like one better, let me know. But I'm going to try them both and see what the difference is. So there I am, and I'm happy we have a little bit of time now. I'm happy to go into any of those live activities if you want to see what they look like. I'm happy to go into the actual Google apps if anybody wants to see what they look like live. Any preferences, questions, run through them all? Yes?
So this is a management students question.
Yep.
It's not tech related, but
No worries.
I'm working with the same age group. How do you manage to keep the teams from using a crowdsourcing approach where they're just going to
Divide and conquer?
Yes.
They do. I kind of wander around. It was in the little demo. It says for safety, your team decides to stay together because you don't know what's out there to get you. I kind of wander around and be like, why are you over here? Where's the rest of your team? You should be working together on these. But some groups, to be honest, they kind of need to divide and conquer if they get too far behind. For example, in order for them to be successful, I might let them do that because these guys are good at that kind of puzzle and those two are good.
I mean teams.
Oh, for each other?
Yeah.
Mine want to finish first, so they're not going to help other people because they want to be the ones that got it done. Honestly.
I have interesting
Apparently.
You can also possibly split up your form sections so that you finish one piece.
Oh, that's a good idea.
To another.
That is a good idea. I don't know if you heard it was divide the Google form so that they can only work on certain sections at a time.
I do. You can press the lock for my kids are extremely silent because they don't want them to hear.
Yeah, I found that mine, they're not really cooperating between groups. They want their group to be the ones who get it done
Yeah.
first.
I found that my groups would spy on each other. I had 7th grade versus 8th grade, and in 8th grade would find reasons to come into the library when 7th grade was working. Cause
So
they
they
were
could get it?
competing. Yeah. They were competing on a screen project, and so they would find reasons to come and visit.
Interesting.
Yeah, but that was good because that was like clean competition. I mean, nobody got in trouble or anything, but and then I caught on and said, oh, you guys spying again, and you know what? It was funny though because it showed that the students were engaged enough to want to know what their opponent was doing, you know?
I'm also thinking the book that I mentioned that I read on the way here was Michael Matera, who does the Hype Summit. It was his Explore Like a Pirate, where he gamified his entire world history class. And I'm actually thinking about trying that next year because I see we're on block scheduling. But by the way, this takes about 50 minutes. My entire thing takes about 50 minutes for my students. We're on blocks. Because so I see freshmen is one of the few classes, freshman English is one of the few classes that's a year long. I'm thinking about doing that because I want to encourage them to do some of the more creative outlets. I don't give grades, and so they're like, is this getting graded? And I have to say no. But then I say, well, your teacher's giving you a participation grade. But I'm thinking about gamifying the entire thing so that they're motivated to come in and participate, and I can put the 9 sections of freshman English kind of against each other, so I can do individual student leaderboards, but I could also do classroom leaderboards. So these activities, like, do you work well in a group? I can give your group points for doing that. If you leave this one guy stranded in the corner, then maybe your team loses a couple of points, or you don't get as many points as other people for completing the activity. And then I can give the points for like checking out books or doing a Flipgrid book review, you know, just regular, anytime come into the library, what Michael Matera calls side quests. So the lessons that they do with me would be their missions or their quests, but then they could earn points by side questing. So I may get really ambitious and try gamifying the whole library curriculum next year. See how it goes. Other questions? googly things you want to see, or you just want to sit here and absorb and call me on Monday. I will tell you that I have 7 hours on the train back to Philly on Wednesday, so feel free to reach out. The school email is really the best way to get a hold of me. I don't tweet a lot, and when I do, it tends to be, hey, I'm at this conference, and they made me tweet this to get this prize or whatever. So I don't recommend following me on Twitter if you're looking for tips like that. I am in several. I'm in the secondary librarians. I'm in teachers using Google. On Facebook, I'm in those groups. So I'm going to post this there later today. But please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to walk you through things or take a look at anything you want to do. I'm excited that you came. I'm excited that you're interested and want to try this. So go, play, be brave, jump in. It'll be fun. Promise. Thank you very much for coming.
Hey, how are you? Alright. Ah. Good. You? Still in business?
Oh, there's a new goose chase.
I had a question for you. I didn't want to raise my hand and ask a question you already answered.
Okay.
Do you,
I'm ready to move on to something new. It'll be something.
like, you have 4 kids going around.
No, we are watching
Yeah, they're all kids on their own, and they're kind of, even though they're in a team, they're all kind of having the resources at their hand to use.
Sometimes they'll all be working around one. They're working together so they don't necessarily have to all be doing it.
Sure,
It's
yeah.
just like the matching. Sometimes like they'll just race into the thing and do it full of
Yeah, I can't accept them. When I do something like this,
Oh yeah, take a sticker.
we have,
Stickers, don't forget your stickers.
we have a subscription to Breakout, and so sometimes we're the ones, like, I will have them all just be on one because there will be a rogue too. So it just creates a, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm just curious.